sometimes when we are individuals, we don't realize. Those of us who come from a traditional culture or family structure, we know that if there is a sad event that takes place even in the extended family, then celebrations and even major events like weddings or a celebration of Eid, it is postponed or is put on hold. And sometimes in our society, because we are more individualistic, even if it is not extended family, even if it is my own close family, I might say that, well, what does it have to do with me? I have to live my life and I have to go on with my life. And I'm celebrating for myself. I'm not insulting somebody else. I am not forcing that celebration on them or doing it in their face. But there is a higher standard that we should aspire to. I shouldn't think that I am an individual and therefore my happiness and my sadness is my personal matter or my own affair. In particular, those who have the greatest rights on me, my close family members, my close friends, my loved ones, their happiness or grief is my happiness or grief. And even if I have a promotion, even if I have a vacation day, even if I have a birthday or an anniversary or a celebration, but if somebody next to me is going through a sad period in their life, then I should factor that in and not celebrate in a way that might make them feel like they have even more of a burden, that might make them even more sad or even more alone. And in fact, when we say that the Shia and the lovers of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad alayhimus salatu wassalam are those who يحزنون لحزننا ويفرحون لفرحنا. They are sad for the grief of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad, and they are happy for the happiness of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. This is one of the parts of that principle, that in reality Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad are more close to me than my own father and mother and brother and sister or son and daughter or spouse or any other close family or friend that I may have. And not only are they closer to me, but they are present for me. I don't think that while Prophet Muhammad, he is thousands or hundreds of years in the past and thousands of miles away, if I go to Medina, then I will say, Assalamu alayka ya Rasulallah. But if I am here, then I am far away from my Prophet and in a different time and in a different era. No. My Prophet, Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa alih, he is not in the past, he is in the present. And he is not in a distant land, he is present for me now. And so the happiness of my Prophet, based on what took place with his family and his offspring, and what is taking place with his ummah, is present for me, and not just something that I associate with the news or with distant events. And the happiness of my Prophet is also present. The same thing applies to the Imam of our time, Hujjat ibn al-Hasan, Imam Mahdi alayhi salam. In this era, when there is so much suffering and overt oppression, when not only have some of our greatest leaders and role models been martyred, those young, filled with a spirit of martyrdom and service for Allah, and those older shuhada who gave their entire life in teaching and training people how to serve Islam as the priority in their life. That loss, it is not just for you and me, but imagine how it must feel for the Imam of our time, Imam Mahdi alayhi salam. And now many of you may have seen the news that even our maraji' are being threatened, that they are also on the target list. And this tells us that the reason for the animosity is because there is an animosity towards Muhammad wa ali Muhammad and their message and their path. It isn't that somebody who stands up and says that I will defend my rights on a battlefield is a target. But anybody who says that I am loyal to Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, anyone who serves their path, anyone who is a teacher and a guide and an anchor of the faith, that person, even if they are in their masjid or in their home or in their classroom, is also a target. And this tells us the reality of the battle and the gravity of the burden that every believer should feel, and the heaviness that must be in the heart of our Prophet Muhammad and Ahlul Bayt and Imam Mahdi alayhimus salatu wassalam. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So we should not do idharul farah at a time when there is a grief that is in our hearts and in front of us. But the birth of an imam is also an event that is a happy event. And that is something that we should honor, even if our celebration is together with that sadness or that heaviness or that grief. And this is something that we find right from the lifetime of our 11th Imam, Imam Hassan Askari alayhi salam. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. I know that it is a weekday, and so I will, inshallah, keep my speech relatively brief. But the life of Imam Hassan Askari, it was a very short imamat. His father, our 10th Imam, Imam Ali al-Naqi al-Hadi, salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. He passed away in the year 252 after Hijrah, just 6 years before the beginning of Al-Ghaybat al-Sughra. And so the imamat of our 11th Imam was only 6 years between the death of the 10th Imam and the beginning of the lesser occultation, Al-Ghaybat al-Sughra. It was a short time. But it is narrated that our 10th Imam, he had several children, but I will mention 2 right now. He had an elder son known as Abu Ja'far Muhammad ibn Ali. And he was named after Imam Muhammad al-Baqir alayhi salatu wassalam. If I say Abu Ja'far Muhammad ibn Ali, then you would be excused for saying that is the name and the kunya and the father's name of our 5th Imam. He was Muhammad al-Baqir ibn Ali Zainul Abidin. And this is Muhammad ibn Ali al-Hadi, al-Taqi, or al-Naqi, I should say. And Muhammad was known as somebody with a great deal of purity, taqwa, knowledge, such that even many of the close companions of our 10th Imam had little doubt in their mind that Muhammad, the son of Imam Ali Naqi, was going to be the next Imam. And this was the wisdom of Allah, and it was the careful planning of our 10th Imam, according to the guidance and the instruction of Allah, that our 10th Imam gave his son Muhammad a public face. He was the older son. He was worthy in all of his attributes of being the assistant and even the successor of our 10th Imam, and our 10th Imam put him forward. And many of the Shia, they didn't even know that Imam Hassan al-Askari was a son of the 10th Imam, and that in fact he was the one who was going to be the Imam. He was younger, and Imam Hassan al-Askari was kept a little bit in concealment because his imamat, it was going to be the preparation for the Shia for the period of Ghaibah. So this was not just during his imamat, but even before his imamat began. So people sometimes wrote letters, or they would visit our 10th Imam. They came to the Imam, and in one case, one of his companions, by the name of Ali ibn Amr al-Attar, he says that I visited Imam Ali al-Naqi in Samarra, and it was very difficult to come to the Imam because he was under house arrest. That was not a voluntary move that Imam Ali Naqi made from Medina to Samarra, but it was a forced move, and it was house arrest. So imagine now, if you come with great difficulty, there is expense, there is the political fear, and even when you come to Samarra, it is very difficult, and you have only certain times, and sometimes with great hardship you are able to come to the Imam. And this companion, Ali ibn Amr al-Attar, he says that I asked Imam Hassan Askari, Man akhussu min awladik? Which of the sons of yours should I look to specifically as the Imam after yourself? Now, a person has, with great difficulty, gone through that effort and expense of coming to the Imam. And it is a very difficult and a very sensitive time to the Shia, for the Shia. And the Imam said that, La takhussa ahada. Don't specify anyone. Until my command comes to you, I will elucidate this, I will clarify this at a later date. So, companion, he visits the Imam, sends his salam and the salam of the people from his city, and he goes back to his home. And he says that after some time now I wrote a letter to the Imam that tell me who should be your son, your successor after you. And the Imam simply says, Al-Akbar min awladi, the eldest of my descendants or my sons. And so long as Muhammad was alive, the eldest son was Muhammad. Of course, after he died, then it became clear that the eldest son was going to be the eldest surviving son, who was our 11th Imam, Imam Hassan al-Askari alayhi salam. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So this was the difficulty of expressing who was going to be the next Imam, but the strategy employed by his father, Imam Ali Naqi, in order to prevent the government from coming and either assassinating or prematurely arresting or preventing Imam Hassan Askari from carrying out the tasks of his imamat, making contact with those who were going to be his successors and his representatives, and carrying out the tasks of imamat. So this was done behind the protective cover of an older brother who everybody was looking at, and even the government spies were looking at, that likely he is going to be the imam. Now, many of you may actually have gone for ziyarat, and if you've gone for ziyarat to Samarra, this is the same Sayyid Muhammad who is buried not far from Samarra in the city of Balad. And although that is still a region which is not primarily inhabited by the Shia and the followers of Ahlul Bayt, yet Sunni and Shia, they respect that site. And Allah has preserved the honor of this son of our 10th Imam, brother of our 11th Imam, and during his lifetime it was an honor that even his father did not deny that he was worthy of imamat. So people suspected and assumed, based on the respect given to him by his father, the Imam, and by his own attributes, that he was worthy of and he was going to be the next Imam. Those of us who may be planning a trip for ziyarat, don't just say that I'm going to go for the Ma'sumeen, I'll go to Samarra and I will skip the ziyarat of Sayyid Muhammad in Balad. That is also something that is important. He was given that honor by his father and by his brother, two Imams. So to return, now, according to narrations, about 2 years before the death of Imam Ali Naqi himself, Sayyid Muhammad died. And this was the wisdom of Allah. When you lose a shaheed, when you lose a leader, then many of us, we think that this is a loss. But it is the sunnah of Allah for Ahlul Bayt and for the followers of Ahlul Bayt that sometimes the greatest victory comes soon after a tragedy. And I don't have time to mention history because, as I said, I want to keep the speech brief, but I want to just give you a few points that you can think about and read more about on your own. The son of our Prophet Ibrahim, who was very beloved by our Prophet and very beloved by Ahlul Bayt, Imam Ali, Fatima Zahra, Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein, they would play with Ibrahim because their ages were very close. And he was their uncle. He was the brother of Fatima Zahra alayhi salam. So he was a very beloved young son of our Prophet in old age, after his other sons had died in their youth. And he was taken by Allah just months before the death of our Prophet himself. And you can rest assured that just as Ahlul Bayt were grieved at the loss of Muhammad, and maybe some munafiqeen would say that once again our Prophet does not have male progeny, and they would remember their old accusation that he is abtar, na'udhu billah, he is without progeny. They probably thought this is a success for us. There's not going to be anybody who is going to challenge our desire to take power. You know, sometimes in political fights between different royal families, if there is even a young prince of another family that survives, their enemies and their competitors, they want to find and arrest and maybe even kill a young innocent successor of that royal family. Why? Because they know that even if that child is young, there will be love and loyalty, and he may be able to get supporters at some time. So, if that is true of a royal family who are not prophets, who are not known for their purity and their piety, they just have a worldly dynasty. You can imagine how much jealousy there was and how much animosity there was to Ibrahim, the son of our Prophet, by the munafiqeen and by those who wanted to prevent the family of the Prophet not from having a kingship, but from having the religious authority that Allah had given them. They would have probably celebrated. And yet, it was the promise of Allah that the name of our Prophet, the lineage of our Prophet, the imamat which was the succession of our Prophet it would be preserved. And if the munafiqeen thought that the loss of Ibrahim is a loss for Rasulullah, then Allah had given our Prophet Kawthar and Fatima Zahra and the descendants of Fatima Zahra alayha salatu wassalam, they preserved that lineage of the Prophet and the message of Imam salawatu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. In our own time, when Imam Khomeini was leading the effort of the revolution, he had a son, and many of you may not have heard or know too much about that son because he died before the revolution was successful. That was Mustafa. And he was a mujtahid and a very worthy son. Brilliant mind. You know how sometimes we say that Shaheed Sadr was a brilliant mind? Musa Sadr was a brilliant mind. So Mustafa, the son of Imam Khomeini, he was the right hand of his father. He was an independent faqih, a jurist, and a scholar of the highest caliber, and very respected and well known. And just at the height of the struggle, when he was most needed, and the oppression of the Shah and the enemies was closing in. And soon Imam Khomeini himself was going to become a refugee, where Iraq was going to say that we can't keep you. Before that, he wasn't able to remain in Turkey. He would come to the border of Kuwait and he would not be given permission, and he was sent to a faraway place in Paris, hoping that we can marginalize the effect of this person. So imagine to lose your son and a scholar and your right-hand man. In that time, people might have thought, oh, this is going to be an end for the whole movement. Who can replace? For an elderly, remember at this time now, Imam Khomeini, he is approaching his 70s. It is a very big burden on a personal level, but also on a scholarly level, also on the level of the movement, also on the level when oppression is increasing. But it was that death, which I would say is likely a martyrdom because it was under suspicious circumstances, to weaken the movement that was begun in the way of Allah. That death reverberated so much that it brought greater attention and fame and love and sympathy for people and allowed the message of the revolution to spread. You see the wisdom of Allah? You would think that this is the end, but it was that sacrifice and the patience shown by Imam Khomeini that actually was like a spark which allowed the revolution to spread and succeed. Salawatu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So now Imam Hassan Askari. Muhammad, the son of our 10th Imam, has died. Imam Hassan Askari is very young. Our 10th Imam and our 11th Imam together are living under house arrest. And it is so dangerous that Imam Ali Naqi has not even told people in general who his other son to be the next Imam is. And then people come to offer condolences for the death of Sayyid Muhammad. Now the enemy, they said Imam Hassan Askari is going to be arrested, and we are not going to allow people to come to him as an Imam. But in the end, he was Ibn al-Rida. He was the grandson of Imam Rida, who was famous among Sunni and Shia and all Muslims and even non-Muslims as the greatest person of his time, so that his son and grandson and great-grandson, our 9th and 10th and 11th Imams, they were known as Ibn al-Rida. And even more than that, he was Ibn Rasulullah. He was the son of the Messenger of Allah. So Ibn Rasulullah was It's not something that the government could deny or could hide. When he suffered a personal tragedy, Imam Ali Naqi, then everybody came to offer condolences. And so according to one narrator, there were 150 people from the family of Abu Talib, from the family of Banu al-Abbas, because Banu al-Abbas were the family of the Caliph, but they were also Banu Hashim. So, in a tribal family, they come now that our great honored member, Imam Ali Naqi, has suffered the loss of a son at the prime of his youth. They came to offer condolences. And Quraysh, who were all generally very wealthy people or in government positions, according to a narration, 150 people of Banu Hashim and Banu Abbas, in particular Banu Abu Talib and Quraysh, they came in the house of Imam Ali Naqi. This is the wisdom of Allah. 150 people who otherwise would not come, but because this was for condolences, they came. Some of you may know that when the Shia were in cases of taqiyya, they were not allowed to have majalis. So it would only be when there was a death or when there was another personal event, they were allowed to gather. And that is when they would pass on their values and their teachings. Otherwise, they were prevented from gathering. If I say that I'm going to have a majlis of Imam Hussein, I can have a wedding, I can have an aqiqah, I can have a walima, I can have a personal event, but I'm not allowed to have an event in honor of the Prophet. So this was a similar kind of a circumstance. 150 people came. And remember, I said in the beginning that there is sadness and there is gratitude, they come together. At that time, Imam Hassan Askari now was visible to the people for the first time. And what a very miraculous way Allah arranged to introduce people to the Imam. He was next to Imam Ali Naqi, and he was overcome with grief. It was his older brother who had died. So he was weeping and expressing his sadness just next to Imam Ali Naqi. And Imam Ali Naqi said in the presence of all of those people, Ya Aba Muhammad, ahdith lillahi shukran, faqad ahdath Allahu fika amra. Oh Abu Muhammad, meaning my son Imam Hassan Askari, give a greater thanks to Allah, because Allah has placed a great affair in your hands. Did he explicitly say anything about imamat? No. But those who were there looking for the guidance, did they get clear guidance of who is the next imam? Yes. And that message was there in front of 150 of the most prominent people in Samarra and in the Muslim world. Many of them may have narrated that without even realizing that they were in effect conveying to the Shia the knowledge of who was going to be the next imam. They were just telling people that Imam Hassan Askari has says that now you are going to be my right hand and my supporter, and you are the eldest of my surviving sons. You have a great responsibility on your shoulders. Like we tell, when somebody dies, we tell the eldest son, now it's your responsibility, take care of your mother, take care of your siblings. So Allah, in His wisdom, it was a great tragedy. But if that loss has a blessing, then it can further the mission. And I'm saying this not only because it's the story of Imam Hassan Askari, but it is our story in our time. No death, no martyrdom, delays or changes the path and the promise of Allah. Sadness and happiness, they come together. Our 10th Imam says to his son, Imam Hassan Askari, Ahdith lillahi shukra. Oh my son, you are filled with tears. You are grieving at the loss of a beloved brother. I too am grieving. I too am grieving, but أحدث لله شكرا, be grateful. Because this is the will of Allah. And this was now the beginning of the imamate, not the imamate, but the announcement of the succession of Imam Hassan Askari. And then within a few months or less than 2 years, he became the imam. So in conclusion, just one hadith from our 11th imam, a reminder for myself and all of us. The 11th imam advised us, do 3 things frequently. أكثروا من ذكر الله وذكر الموت. Always try to remember God and death. Whenever you remember death, then it gives you courage to do something that is going to be of benefit for you after death. Our worldly life makes us stingy, makes us petty, makes us irritable. But when we remember death, then I remember, you know what? I may only have a few years or a few days left with my family members. I shouldn't get upset and I shouldn't get annoyed. I shouldn't be stingy because I'm going to leave my money and it's not going to remain with me, so I should spend in the way of Allah and invest in my eternal life. أكثروا من ذكر الله وذكر الموت. وتلاوة القرآن. Frequently recite the Quran. Even if it is a small amount, but keep connected to the Quran. And وَأَكْثِرُوا مِنَ الصَّلَاةِ عَلَى النَّبِي. Send salutations on the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. فَإِنَّ الصَّلَاةَ عَلَى رَسُولِ اللَّهِ عَشْرُ حَسَنَاتٍ. Just one salat that you send, that is 10 good deeds. It is a connection between you and the Prophet. And what connection is more important than the one that is between us and our Prophet, that connects us to Allah, that connects us to our religion, that connects us to our values. We give our gratitude to Allah on the birth of Imam Hassan Askari. He is the father of Imam Mahdi. This is the preparation of the Shia for that final stage of our test, which is the separation from our Imam, awaiting the fulfillment of God's promise. May we stay on that path. And just to reiterate the message given by Brother Ali Hassan, that inshallah we are having a fundraiser. This is dedicated to Imam al-Asr Masjid, a masjid for the son and heir of our 11th Imam, the son and heir of our Prophet, the one we look to for our hope, for all that we ask from Allah. So he was very gentle and said that for those interested, you can buy a ticket, but I will say, you are interested. If you're going to be here, then please purchase a ticket and come. If you're not going to be here, then that doesn't mean that you are off the hook. Purchase a ticket, let us know that you will not be there, and inshallah you will sponsor one member of our community that we can bring to the program. So you are all interested and all of us are on the hook. This is for our fulfillment of a very long-standing dream and an important need for our community. Once again, in gratitude to Allah for the guidance of our Prophet and Ahlul Bayt, and in particular Imam Hassan al-Askari alayhi salam, let us recite Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. We can stand for ziyarah. Assalamu alayka ya Rasulullah. Assalamu ala Ali Amir al-Mu'mineen. السلام على فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين. السلام على الحسن والحسين سيدي شباب أهل الجنة. السلام على علي بن الحسين زين العابدين. السلام على محمد بن علي الباقر. السلام على جعفر بن محمد الصادق. السلام على موسى بن جعفر الكاظم. السلام على علي بن موسى الرضا. السلام على محمد بن علي الجواد. السلام على علي بن محمد الهادي. السلام على الحسن بن علي الزكي العسكري. السلام على الحجة بن الحسن القائم المهدي صلى